the name Tom Haines might ring a bell, especially if you lived in Eastern North Carolina or anywhere in North Carolina, and you remember the Attic from the 70s, 80s, 90s into the 2000s. That was the club to go to. It was, oh man, so many nights at the Attic. And it was eventually North Carolina's number one club, and then one of the top three in the whole country. They brought in the big acts like the Ramones, Dave Matthews, Greg Allman. Oh man, I remember the night I went in there with Def Leppard after they played at ECU. I'll talk about that. Anyway, Tom is the guy who started the Attic, and a great guy. And he's also the author of this book that we're going to be talking about, SNAFU, My Vietnam Vacation, about being in Vietnam and ramifications of that, and Agent Orange, that he's still suffering the ramifications today. And he did, well, that's a long story in itself. But Tom, it's great to see you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing back in those days when you started.
Well, speaking of that, that's how, to give you an idea how I started. I'm from upstate New York. And when I got out of college, I got my diploma in one hand, my draft notice in the other. And I ended up at Fort Benning to go to officer candidate school, which I decided not to do. And so my next trip, of course, was to Vietnam. And I put in for an early out. You can get out three months early if you go back to school. And I already had a degree in business, and I wanted to get a degree in art. And so I asked my my roommate at Fort Benning if he had any idea, and he says, "Oh yeah, he's East Carolina." He said, "That's one of the best art schools in the country." And I said, "Okay, I'll keep that in mind." And then when I get to Vietnam, my hooch mate said, when I brought that up to him, that I'm looking around for an art school, he says, "Oh, I can tell you where to go." He says, "Oh, and by the way, the first one was from Western Carolina, and the guy in Vietnam was from Western Carolina, and said, go to East Carolina." He says, "It's number one in the South for co-eds." Yeah, hands down. Anyway, so I ended up applying to East Carolina, and I got in, and they tripled the tuition for out-of-state students. So I needed to find a job because I was only getting $175 a month from the government. And so I found out about a nightclub that had been closed, and they wanted to reopen. And so I went to the owner and I said, did I know what beer tasted like? And I know what rock and roll sounded like. So I'm your man,
Yeah,
and he bought that.
The right place at the right time, the old saying. That's what happened. And so he said, "Well, yeah, I could start a rock and roll club." Yeah. And so how quick did it get off? How long did it take before it got off the ground?
About a month and a half. And because it was a shell, no bar, no stage, nothing. We built it pretty much from scratch. And we had a grand total of $365 for our budget to do this. So we decided to go to Mother Nature to decorate and build the attic. And by that, I mean, we went to the sawmill, and when you put a log through the I'm sorry, my cognitive issues are a little bit off, and I have to word search. So excuse me when I word search. But
sure.
Yeah, but anyway, the log goes through the thing, and they cut off the outsides, and I turned them over so that they would be flat on one side, and they'd be all rugged on the other. Those were what we made our tables out of.
Now let's before we, because I don't want to run out of time before we get to a lot of stuff. So you got the club up and running. We'll talk about the Noose later. And who were the first bands that you booked, and how did you find out who were the bands that you started with?
Basically, it was pretty much on my own. I didn't go through agencies to begin with. You know, I knew a band in Greenville, and then they knew a band that they thought would be good for the club, and et cetera. So it was word of mouth. And so the first band we used, I'm drawing a blank, but I can tell you who the second band was.
That's good. That's what
second band was
first
Calabash.
band. Yeah, the first band. It's like a test, like a pilot for a show. You know.
There you go. Exactly. So Calabash Corporation was the second band. At the time, they had a really strong following in Eastern, well, actually not just Eastern North Carolina. They had a strong following pretty much throughout the South. And so we started off strong, but we had been charging 25 cents or 50 cents, to get in. And that was too high.
What year was this?
1971.
1971. How much was a beer? How much was a beer?
45 cents, I believe.
Oh, yeah, not bad.
And but to get in, it was basically just almost every club in Greenville was free. You just walked in.
Right.
Whether it was a disco,
I see. Yeah.
live entertainment or whatever.
Right.
And all of a sudden they were seeing things like 25 cents. Wow, really? You had to pay 25 cents to get in? And then we went up to 50 cents and they got freaked out. So finally, to get, the better quality bands, I had to up it periodically. And so I upped it to eventually up to $1. And our quality of the bands increased immensely because our capacity was 650. And so, $650 times,
yeah,
650 people times $1, you can get a good band for that pay. And so we kept struggling with it and it got, we got, our reputation got stronger and stronger because our music got stronger and stronger.
It sure did.
In fact, and it finally got to the point where we said, okay, we need to go ahead and do our first concert. And so I did go to an agency on that one. And we had a big meeting with all the managers saying, who should we start off with the concert? And all kinds of names were thrown out. Some of them were way too expensive. And others were, well, this guy's not really that well known yet. So we had to keep playing around with it. We finally came up with one. And I called their agent and he says, oh, this is perfect. He says, they're playing in Richmond the night before you want them. So that would be great.
Timing.
Richmond and timing. Yeah, there you go. And
who was that band?
That's what I'm getting to.
Oh, okay.
We ended up coming back to the meeting. I says, we can get this guy, but I said, it's going to be a $3 cover charge. And everybody freaked out. They said, no way. There's no way. So you're just going to have to we'll have to just pass on Bruce Springsteen.
Oh, oh man. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that was one of the great, you brought it. I mean, it's just amazing because I worked with you a couple of radio stations and you brought in such great acts, man. Remember the Romantics were there?
Romantics.
The
Ramones.
Oh, the Ramones and the Byrds and Dave Mattews and Greg Allman. Jerry Seinfeld was there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this, and I don't know if we even talked about, but the night Def Leppard played at ECU, and I was involved in booking them because I was playing so much on the radio, even their first album, especially their second. So after the show, I said, you got to come to the attic. I don't know, just come on down. So they did. They got cleaned up, came to the attic, and they were drinking. Everything was going great. They were enjoying it. And then somebody was irritating the drummer. Yeah, it was like they got into a fight and it got physical. And it was somebody there was just drunk. And then it all ended. You guys kicked him out. The guy was starting all the trouble. And then it was great for the rest of the night. And whenever I talk to the band, we always talk about that night. They loved it. It was great. They really had a ball there. I don't even know if you know about that.
Actually, when you just jogged my memory. Yeah, I had forgotten about that.
Yeah.
I do remember we got some T-shirts, and I believe they did. And
Oh,
something
you
else.
made T-shirts because of the Def Leppard fight?
No, we
Oh.
made T-shirts,
Oh.
for the club. We started off for the first year without any T-shirts.
Oh, yeah. Great.
In fact, the logo was nothing more. Our concept for doing a logo was to make sure it was big, bold, and you could see it from a distance. We wanted to have it just hit you right in the face. And so we got a font, and it worked great. And but it was boring. And we said, we've got to get something to make this thing sing. And so there was a noose hanging behind the bar. And we said, hey, this is an attic and there's rafters and all kinds of stuff. I know it's a little morbid, but it would make for a cool logo.
And so the noose you didn't put up, that was already in the building?
Yeah, that was already in the building hanging in the rafters.
Okay. I got you. Yeah.
And so we got the noose, and then we decided, all right, we'll put it between the two T's, and that made it go off balance. And so we put it at the second T, we put it at a continuation of the T with the noose, and that looked great. And so we went with that, and
yeah, the logo is great. I mean, the T-shirts, I have several. I don't know if I don't know if I fit in them anymore. Maybe I outgrew them a little bit. I think I was wearing like a medium or a large, that I'm definitely extra large now. So, but oh man. And I got to ask you, you really did, you even had created your own radio show. You bought time on all the stations. It wasn't just the station I was at, which is the way it started. I remember, it was WRQR, if you remember what you're having. But you were a big player. Was it always luck when you got some of the big ones? Like Howard Hessman from WKRP came there for a show. You brought in all kinds of interesting characters. How did you do? Is it just knowing the agents and working deals?
It was just a building process. Like I said, I started out with no agents. I just did it with, I remember a band called Pegasus, and a very popular band. They were one of our top 10 bands for the whole 20 years that I was there. And I was walking down Fifth Street and heard this band practicing in the Methodist Student Center. And so I walked in, and I really liked what they were doing. Talked to the guy. He booked the attic for that weekend. And people loved him. I mean, absolutely.
Bryce Street was another one you'd have all the time. Now, Stuart Campbell, was he there from the beginning? He was like a partner with you and a couple other people too. How about what's his name? Tronto. Bob. Sorry,
Tronto.
Who?
Joe Tronto.
Joe, I knew it was Tronto. I just lost the first name there. Yeah. So talk about their pieces of the puzzle and how they helped out.
Well, Stuart was on board from day one. He was my fraternity brother. And so, we went over and started building the attic, hammer and nails and plywood and whatever. And a quick thought, because it just came to me, not miss this. We're building the decor, like I said, by Mother Nature look. And there was a home behind us. The woman was in Europe visiting, and she had an old fence that was, behind her house. And I said, God, that would be perfect for the attic. I says, why don't we go ahead and take her fence? And then when she comes back, we'll either replace it or we'll pay for it. And she came back and thanked us. She said, that's awesome. She says, I've been wanting to get rid of that thing for the longest time.
That worked out great.
So we put it over. It was the scene behind the stage. That was the backdrop. That's the word I was looking for. It was the backdrop for the stage. And it looked perfect. I mean, it was just like, it was different. It was unique in every respect. And it was the backdrop for, 20 years.
You know,
no, 10 years.
As you know, because of COVID, we're just now starting to see people go back to clubs. I don't even know if they're fully open yet. Really, I don't know, because do they have spacing? I guess they're asking for vaccines. But what, you had that club, such perfect timing. The 70s, rock and roll. 80s, complete rock and, I mean, it was the time to go into rock and roll radio. Everything. I love rock and roll. Always did. Always will. A lot of things, a lot of genres under rock and roll. But gosh, having a place you can count on for live entertainment, 7 nights a week you open, right?
Well, we were open 5 nights, and then we went to 6, and we went back to 5. We closed on Mondays. And after a while, we went, we're losing out here on this, an extra night. And so we did a thing called the first annual Spring Zing Wing Ding Fling Thing. And we did that with Bryce Street. No, I'm sorry. Bryce Street was the annual Christmas party. And they did that for 12 years, every year for 12 years. And, but we did, the Spring Zing Wing Ding Fling thing. It was a major success. I mean, we had 850 people the first time we did it. And then it grew from there.
Yeah,
so
I remember hearing about it, playing commercials. That was another thing. You probably more than any other club in the market, you bought advertising. You maybe didn't even need as much as you bought, but you did. You always were on the radio, and eventually in different markets, because people came from miles around, always from Fayetteville. And obviously there was a lot of Marines from Cherry Point, but all through the Eastern Seaboard. And people, it was really cool. And Greenville was just an awesome place to be. It was just
it was perfect because it was a college town, and it still wasn't gigantic. It wasn't, it was like 13,000 people lived there, and 13,000 people were students there. So no, I think it was more than 13,000. I think it was like, I don't know, it was low. And what was I getting ready to say? I had a story about the radio thing. Oh, I know what it was. Where our main focus on advertising was the calendar. We printed calendars.
Oh yeah, you did. You had those very handy calendars, right? Oh, those are great. You always had to have that for the month. People would clip it up on their bulletin board. Or whatever. Yeah.
And it got me to book all my bands a month in advance. So that was a plus for it too. But we had 54 locations in Greenville and surrounding area that we put those calendars. Like at a gas station, and when people paid for their gas, there'd be a little holder there with a calendar. It
was classy looking too. It was a lot of gaudy and flashy. It was just straightforward but nice.
Yeah, that's where my major came in.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You had that. Now, one with the Ramones there in the '80s. I missed that concert. I know the guys. I've had them on my show. But I'm curious, how did that go? Any memories from having the Ramones? Did the audience really get into it?
Yeah, the audience was majorly into it. We had to post 2 or 3 people down front to try to minimize as much of this diving. What did you call it? What's that called?
Oh yeah. Body surfing. No, it's they have people. There's a lot of slam dancing. Was that what it was like? It was. It was the '80s. It was the punk era.
Yeah.
Oh,
and it was.
And
slam dance. One of the. Yeah, I'll have to send it to you. It's one of only 2 times that we ended up having a wide angle lens taking a picture of them playing on the stage, and it turned out awesome. I mean, really good.
Did you record did you record that concert by any chance?
No, we didn't even attempt to do that because that whole infringement thing and the copyrights and all that kind of stuff prevented us from doing that.
Yeah.
And But we ended up doing some recording with permission from the bands.
Sure.
And so we have, some reel-to-reel tapes from back in the day of those bands, and a couple of times with the comedians.
And with the Pointer Sisters, some of that was televised, wasn't it? Wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the biggest event that we had in the history of the club. NBC approached us through an independent person to record the Pointer Sisters in concert at the Attic to be shown on a TV show called let's see, what was it called? It was called
Don't worry, I forgot about
the Blue Jean Network. It was the Blue Jean Network.
Oh, okay.
And so they had like a 12 shows, and the Pointer Sisters came in second for popularity. First was Bette Midler back in the day. But the show went on there, and then for that was in we produced the show in January, and they had the number 2 song in the nation, and then it was on the air in August when they had the number 2 song in the nation.
Oh, good. Oh, that's great.
It was videotaped, and right now, if anybody wants to watch any of it, all they have to do is go to YouTube or to Google, and type in Pointer Sisters Attic, and almost all the
footage is up there.
Yeah.
A Carrot Top used to go there. He used to go there a lot. He used to perform a lot at the Attic.
We had a number of times. In fact, when he came to the Attic the first time, we had just started booking him. And when I'm not talking about booking as an agency, but as their management.
Talk briefly about that.
Yeah, he was out of Florida, and he just started doing the comedy thing, and very quickly he wanted to branch out because he was doing everything in Florida, and we ran into a real problem with our customers because he basically blew away the headliner every time. And so very rapidly, we've switched the positions. And this one guy didn't want to do it. And then we showed him a clip, and he goes, "Oh, okay, I'm not following that."
So who was doing the managing with all the things you were handling with the Attic? Did you also personally become his manager?
I was on his management team. I was the co-manager for Rodney Carrington.
Oh,
and that was a trip.
And Janet Gaynor, wasn't Janet Gaynor working with you?
Janet was working at the club, and she was also involved with our promotions.
Yes,
and she was the one that did the Attic Midnight Hour, and she had a huge following right off the bat because she had that voice.
She had the great
voice.
She was such a good employee, and she really was so. I remember years later she tried to get a movie done for John Boy and Billy. I don't know if that ever worked out, but she's a great.
I was one of the screenwriters for that.
Oh yeah, what happened? I think they just didn't pass. No one wanted it.
You ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready.
9/11. That's where the producers were working.
Oh well, we need you. Hey, some things are just. I remember how things just changed overnight. I'm looking at the clock here, and we don't have a lot of time, but I want to talk about this book, SNAFU, My Vietnam Vacation. SNAFU, and it really is a great book. It has lots of pictures, but also it's laid out well, very humorous, and also says a lot. To get right into it, because you're still suffering from Agent Orange, even though you went on for years after Vietnam, you felt great, but years later in life, it started to. So talk about that aspect because you're still going through stuff.
Yeah, I'm majorly actually. The way Agent Orange worked, it's element dioxin, which was pretty much most of Agent Orange, is the 9th most dangerous element known to man. I mean, this is some really bad stuff. And the developers, which was Monsanto and Dow Chemical and the United States government, didn't do the research. They said it was only going to kill trees. And the final tally of American soldiers that were killed or are currently dying. In fact, there was a T-shirt that said, "I was killed in Vietnam, but I'm currently dying. I was killed in Vietnam, but I haven't died yet." That's what it was. And then it went on to thank Monsanto and Dow Chemical. And so I was home free for 4 decades. And then all of a sudden it hit me like a ton of bricks. I ended up being 100% almost right off the bat disabled. And then it kept going. I was disabled 260%. I had 8 diseases, 94 trips to the VA in a 15-month period. And it got everything. It got my prostate and diabetes and neuropathy, and my pancreas, kidneys, all that stuff. I had eight diseases, but I fought along with it. And I finally asked my doctor. I said, "Why am I still here?" And she says, "Well, I can actually answer that." She says, "You don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't do recreational drugs. You're 6'3" and you weigh 180 pounds. Excuse me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
And I weighed 180 pounds and I worked out 5 days a week. She said, "Plan on being around for a while." And like crazy, all my friends that I was in Vietnam with or met afterwards were dying one after another. It was a group of seven of us that kept up with each other and would get together as often as possible. And I'm the only one left. The rest of them are gone. And you know how many were affected by it? 500,000. Well, some people say 300,000. It's somewhere between the two. They don't want to keep track of it. And they don't, in fact, they've taken it out of the schools. They don't teach it in the schools. And it's a major, they won't. I tried to get a memorial in DC. They said, "Don't even think about it." I mean, the 58,000 they took care of the nurses. They have a memorial for, and there's memorials for all kinds of people. But with Agent Orange, they don't want to hear it because they're embarrassed.
Yeah, society collectively, we're so sick of hearing about Vietnam. They're just trying to put it behind them, I'm afraid. That's probably what's going on, with all the years in the protests. And wow, I was growing up through all that stuff. And I remember the politics.
Oh
my God. We don't have time to talk about it. I'm just, Tom, you were always and still are, even though you're suffering with all this stuff, some bad days, good days. You were one of the nicest guys I ever knew. Easy to work with, has a smile in his face. You could hear, sometimes with people, you could hear that they're smiling just by the sound of their voice, So through all that you've been through, man, it was great to have you finally on the show.
Yeah, but we'll have to do it again and talk about the fire.
Oh, we didn't even talk about the Noose. I think we got 3 minutes. Can you get the Noose story in? Because that became controversial.
To begin with, for the first 3 decades, nobody mentioned it. In fact, I had more than one black band ask for T-shirts. And Steve Harvey was performing in there one night, and he came up to me at the bar after he set up, and he came up to the bar. He had his hands like this around his neck, and he went, "So, Tom, what's the significance of that noose?" And I just looked up at him. I said, "If you're not funny, you'll find out." But that was the only time that anybody ever even said anything. But it was almost in the 90s before the first person said anything about it. There was no connotation about us being.
No, because yeah, you know, with Halloween and the movies and the costumes and all kind, especially in Greenville at Halloween, a Noose was like nothing. I mean, it was monsters and people and vampires and you know. Anyway, yeah, so that was a big controversy that you had to take down the Noose. So you know, no big deal.
Well, actually, we had a Noose hanging from behind the bar, and the ABC came in and they said, "We need to talk to you, Tom." And they said, we went behind the bar, and they said, "That's got to go." And he pointed to the Noose, and I said, "Okay, why is that?" And he said, "Because you have 6, I think it was. You have 6 knots in the Noose." He said that constitutes a
6 knots,
something of execution, a symbol of execution. And he says
the issue.
Yeah, that was the issue. It was a symbol of execution.
Well, you know, I can understand the sensitivity on that. You know, it's just you grow up with a society and this is the way things are. And then you say, well, you know, if I had to put myself in that person's shoes, I see it, I suppose, you know, it's a learning process. But anyway, Tom,
one more thing.
Yeah.
One more thing.
Yeah.
The Pointer Sisters, when we were setting up the stage, I asked them if it was okay for us to put our logos on either side of their logo. And they said, absolutely, we're all in this together. Let's have some fun. And this was 2 nooses hanging besides their name.
And it was on NBC.
Yeah, and then nobody cared.
No,
it was
because you didn't think of one thing. You know, I really don't want to get into it, but it was great talking to you, man.
Absolutely.
Hey, SNAFU.
And by the way, one quickie here. I promise this is
really quick.
The book is currently selling for $5.85. The people that sell
Amazon, yeah,
right. Amazon.
I bought it.
They put it on sale. The book sells for $25.
And great reviews too. Great. Well, good timing. They put it on sale. Yeah. It's a big book. Look at it. Yeah. All right, gotta go. Tom Haines, everybody.
Great pleasure. And talk about good people. You're one.
Thanks, Tom. Bye-bye.